Good day, lords and ladies, and welcome back to Age of Fear, the Undead King with me, Cornish-Knight. This is going to be a post-commentary video, partly due to the fact that for some reason known only to my Audacity sound capturing software, it decided to stop recording 8 minutes into an hour-long video, and I didn't realise until it was too late, so I'm not particularly happy. It's either that or I've done something stupid. So here we go. As you can see, I am in the process of upgrading my units for the final battle against myself and the Undead King. I have enjoyed this game quite a lot, actually, bar the obvious glitches that you can see on screen, which are a bit annoying. I find the game to be a very enjoyable experience. You can see I'm going along. I like having the parry ability. The twin attack and the parry ability for the vampires is quite devastating, as is backstab. To be honest, I find out of all the infantry in the game that you can pick up, the two infantrymen that you want in the undead faction in any good numbers are the abominations and the vampires. I find them to be like the best all-round undead infantry that you can have in the game. I'm not a massive fan of the undead mages. I tried using them earlier on in the campaign, but just did not agree with me. They're too squidgy, they get crushed too quickly, they're more like cannon fodder than actual proper mages, and it's not really worth having them. As you can see, I'm getting rid of a lot of the basic troops that I picked up at the beginning of at the end of the last battle, such as like the skeletons and stuff like that. Surprisingly though, these guys are unlike in the human campaign where like the basic foot soldiers are relatively rubbish. I find the actual skeletons to be relatively useful just as like blocking forces, because obviously, as you can see, when you're playing as the necromancer faction, you don't have to pay for units, so like literally chucking disposable units at people is a good strategy if you want to do that. As you can see, just like disbanding people, getting rid of some of the lower level vampires. I wouldn't normally do this, but literally because this is the final battle, I decided that it wasn't really worth keeping any of the units that didn't have levels, so the abominations from the previous battle had to go. To be honest, when you get to this point in the game, I have found it's pretty much worthwhile to... if they haven't got an experience level, there's no point having them because they're not that useful. As I've been saying throughout this Let's Play, the thing that you want to buy first and foremost before you buy anything else with your experience points is basically your experience rating, which is if you're a novice, if you're a novice, a recruit, a veteran, or an elite, as indicated by the little badges at the top right hand corner of the character's profile. I always buy those first because they have massive stat increases across the board, and they're much better than anything else you can buy, bar some abilities. Now, sorry, just having a quick sip of water. Now I'm just trying to figure out who to have. I picked up the Black Knight, which is what I wanted to get. I wanted to pick up the Black Knight because they are very useful people to have. Now, I personally like the Black Knights. They're very heavy hitters, but you can build them one of two ways. You can build them have them they're basically the people you want to use to finish off a fight, so you can get their extra attack from the cleaving ability. Or you can have them with stun and use them to basically stun lock people and keep them in place. One of the things I did notice, and I'm just going to make it now, comment of it now, and you'll see it in the actual battle itself. The Lich has an ability called Disintegration. Personally, I find the icon for the Disintegration spell a bit misleading because it's not as bright and as colourful as the other abilities. I keep on thinking that it's not usable, it's not active, because obviously all the other icons for the spells are very colourful, and as such, yeah, it's not particularly great. I keep on forgetting it's there. I think, oh, I don't have the mana for it, or I'm not in base contact for it, and only towards the end of the Axie battle did I remember that I could actually use Disintegration, which probably would have been a really good spell to use. And at this point now I'm just trying to make up if I want to actually take a mage or not. I decided not to and take someone else. I'm not a massive fan of the undead mages, as I said. I find them a bit too fragile for my purposes. I decided to take a ghoul in the end. I believe I messed around with the idea of taking maybe the skull catapult because it has an area of effect ability, which is always nice, but it only has like 7 uses, which means that in a relatively long drawn out battle it's not really that useful. I'd rather have someone that could actually get the job done. I put a skeleton horseman in, pardon me, I put a skeleton horseman in at this point as well, and then I sort of changed my mind and think I'll grab the ghoul, because you can resurrect the ghouls. With the alteration that they've made to control undead, it's much more palatable to be taking ghoul units. No, not ghoul units. It's the mixture between sort of skeletal and zomboid. I prefer ghouls because obviously they move faster, they hit harder, and you can resurrect them from the grave, which is something that you can't really do with skeletons. You can give them healing potions, which is very, very nice, but you can't resurrect them, so they're always more fragile than the more fleshy abominations walking around your army. It's a really interesting thing how tactics change in this. For example, I found when fighting the human faction that you predominantly want to have mobile forces. Well, that's how I found that you want to predominantly have a mobile force, either made up of vampires with I've made up of like cavalry and having vampires as the main infantry group, or you want to basically do it with a very methodical force made up mostly of zombies and abominations and maybe some ghouls, with the Black Knights basically being what's the right word I'm looking for? Being direct, like they're basically being VIP hunters. They're basically headhunters. You send your Black Knights out to kill enemy mages, enemy characters, or anyone that can really pose a threat to your force, while the rest of your force basically chews through, literally or figuratively, depending on how you've built it, literally chews through the human faction or the orc faction in a couple of scenarios where you fight the orcs. When you fight the undead though, that particular tactic isn't as useful, especially when you start coming up against units where they're like where the command units have the undead control undead spell. So it's not as a good strategy. I was just looking here because basically they released a patch just a couple of days ago, which basically meant that the character here, I can never pronounce the name. I always call it Nimue, but it's not. It's like Nue basically can use armor and weapons, which is nice. Well, armor and shield, which he couldn't do before. I'm still not a massive fan of the Chaos Amulet. They did fix it, so basically you still have your mana, it just doesn't regen. But I couldn't figure out if that would work if you had a magical potion of regeneration, of regenerate magic, if that would work with that amulet or not. So I decided not to use it. And the next bit of this is just pretty much me just going through, just equipping everybody with potions. My mentality behind this was, unfortunately, it didn't really help on the coming battle because I got my timing of using potions wrong, because I keep on forgetting that you need to pop potions before you go into combat, which I always find a bit of an annoyance in some ways, but it's to balance the game, I can understand that. So I basically go through and just equip everyone with potions. I had enough money by this point to I had enough money by this point to basically give everyone potions that they needed. It's interesting playing the Undead faction. You really notice the weaknesses that the Undead faction have, especially if you're like low level undead, where blah blah blah. So my brain stopped working for a second. Where the necromancer, which is the person that's predominantly leading your forces, it has quite low morale. Necromancers in this game do not have particularly good morale, which means that they can quite easily be broken. If you basically hit a necromancer hard enough early on, his morale will break and he'll run off, which is not fantastic considering that necromancer is the only thing keeping your forces alive. Indeed. Now, yeah, this is basically, this part is, I'm just going to basically talk about, because what you're going to see now is me basically just equipping potions to people. My basic tactic for this was that I wanted to give the vampires a healing potion, and I believe I was giving them like either the swiftness, I was giving them the swiftness potion, which basically means they move faster and have a bit more defense, which means that they have a better ability to sort of zip around the battlefield doing stuff. I find that the potions in this game, before the patch, weren't so useful. Now that developers have patched it so you can have more than one potion per unit, it is very... Pardon me. Oh, sorry, I do not mean to yawn. I don't know why I'm yawning. No, but I did find that with the developers have been very, very good at patching their product. So it means that when you had, for example, all units could only have like one potion unless you had taken the alchemist trait for your heroes, because they could have two. Now they can all have two potions, which means that you get a lot more use out of them. Whereas when I first started playing this game, I only ever used to equip health potions to people, because obviously there was too much of a risk to not equip health potions to people. If I was going to take a health potion, if I was going to take, say, a potion of strength, I'd rather take the potion of I'd rather take the healing potion, because obviously keeping your character alive is a much more bigger investment than a strength potion. But now that you can carry two, nearly everyone will carry a healing potion, and they'll carry a combat stimulant of some kind, either like Brute's Brew or Potion of Swiftness. One of my personal favourites is having the Brute's Brew and a Potion of Invulnerability and giving it to a Black Knight or some kind of heavy hitter, and literally just slamming him into a group of enemies and him just tying them down, because obviously the Potion of Invulnerability makes him nigh on impossible to damage. As I keep on finding when fighting these guys, the Undead faction, because they'll literally just pop a potion, especially when they pop it on skeletons. You'll see in the upcoming battle what I meant. I actually found this battle to be a lot more frustrating than the previous one I did with the Paladin. I don't know, maybe it was the way that they sort of lined the units up. It meant that it was a lot harder to counter how you had to do it. As you can see here, I'm basically trying to figure out what to give. I'm trying to figure out if I want to give the Potion of Invulnerability to the Abominations. I eventually do, because my basic tactic with this is that I'm going to try and probably hold the line with the vampires and the abominations, while my cavalry will attempt to flank, and hopefully it will work. That's what I was considering at this time, which is why I gave them the particular setup that I did, which was that they all had staying power potions, either healing potions or defense potions, and they also had movement potions in case of the vampires. In hindsight, it might have been worthwhile to give the abomination swiftness potions so they could move around the battlefield a bit quicker, but I didn't really consider that at the time. I wanted to basically keep my momentum going. Sorry, trying to stop yawning for some reason, I'm just so yawning. A mistake I do make at this point here is I forget to give an antidote to the necromancer, because okay, this is one of the weaknesses of the necromancer, is that if you want to kill a necromancer easily, especially early game, poison attacks are really effective, because obviously the necromancer will have low HP because he's a summoning unit, and you just poison him, you do a little bit of damage as well, and he'll run off somewhere and he'll die of basically blood poisoning, which is a nice way to keep them down. Unfortunately, I forget to actually give him that. I just checked that I can't give Krill any more potions. I do like the Krill character in this. Out of the 2 campaigns I played so far, which are the Paladin and the Necromancer, I personally found the Necromancer to be much more enjoyable. The Paladin wasn't really a Paladin in my book. He was very self-serving and very sort of like arrogant and opinionated for most of the campaign. So I wouldn't really count him as a Paladin. He was more like an accidental Paladin. And as you can see, here's the Undead King with the dialogue popping up. I must admit, I do like the dialogue between the people in these little bits. It does give some character to them. And as always, I do apologise for the screen flicking. There's not a lot I can do about it. It's just something that happened. I'm using OBS to record this, which is the only capture software that I have found that will actually record this game. But even so, I still can't get it to work fantastically well. We have a look around. As you can see, the undead are lined up on either side, which is actually a relatively bad layout compared to how they used to be. You've got a whole bunch of demons, 3 demons in total, and you've got a whole load of high-level units in the back, mostly vampires, a couple of liches, banshees, the whole works, squaring off against 15 of my guys. And this wouldn't have been even 15, I would have gone into this with 14 people if I hadn't got the leadership upgrade for the main character. Now, as you can see, we're putting out our units. My basic plan is to try and hold with my frontline units, so my vampires and my abominations. And I'm just trying to set up. I also had a plan because people had basically made comment that I wasn't using my control undead spell enough with my characters. So what my plan at this point had been was to keep my necromancer and my lich relatively close to the action, so they could do command undead and turn the undead faction's forces against them, which is what you see them putting over there. In hindsight, it might have been better if I'd put someone on the opposite side, so I was a bit more balanced out. But I was expecting just to be able to breeze through the skeletons on the left. It didn't really happen, unfortunately. And as you can see, also, I'm hovering over the fact that the fiends, the demons in question, are all basically using potions, both blood potions and healing potions, which are rather worrisome. That one has got a brawler's potion, which is also pretty unpleasant. So we end deployment and we will start. I decide at this point to I was just trying to remember. Do I move them up here? Yeah, I do. A couple of times during this battle I make mistakes, which is that I press the left mouse stick button instead of the right mouse button. Here I'm just like, a number of people have mentioned that I make use of Fireball too much. I personally enjoy the Fireball spell, it does more damage.
I'm not dead,
at the risk of missing. And in this I prefer to have the Fireball spell. Poison isn't fantastic against them. You can see the demons are buffing up and everything and charging right in. Nasty things that they are. And on come the undead. What I was hoping to do early on was to repeat a tactic that I'd used in my previous encounter with this guy when I was playing the Paladin, which was to wipe out his skeletal units, because obviously they can't resurrect skeletal units, so it means that if you wipe them out you're permanently decreasing their combat ability. Unfortunately, it doesn't quite pan out that way. I get my timings slightly wrong, which means that they basically start chugging potions and become very, very nasty indeed. Also, this time around you notice that there's a lot more wraiths. The undead have wraiths, which are pretty unpleasant. The Undead King moves. I'm trying to find the perfect location to basically poison them. There we go. I find poison works really well against the demons. That's just how I find it just very useful. Also, another good tip to basically killing the demons in this game, just send vampires against them. Vampires get health back and become stronger with every excess health point over their maximum. So if you just basically beat them to death, it's relatively easy. The demons themselves, I found, but I was actually really worried about them. To be honest, though, I should have been more worried about the skeletons. Since nearly every single skeleton there on either flank was equipped with a potion of vulnerability and had fully upgraded stats, which makes them very nasty indeed. All magical armor and all a host of other nasty things. I also had some pretty bad dice rolls, to be honest. I missed a lot of like 80 hit chances.
Ride with me.
Yeah, a lot of my previous survivors from my previous game, I should say, the developers who made it through, a lot of them, like, one of them had died in the previous episode, and I didn't really feel kind enough, not kind enough, it felt wrong to bring him back. Now, I'm pretty sure that Leech and Leaflyer, I couldn't remember if Leech, if Steel Life worked on demons. I think it does, but I just forgotten about it. And I basically decided to end the turn hold, because I expect these guys to turn up. A whole host of the undead basically pop their potions and charge in. At this point in the game, I'm not, like at this point in the campaign, I'm not really worried about bringing people back. The other reason I subbed my my main character in the front line is because he basically regens health. He picked up an artifact which allows him to regen health, which is very useful. As you can see, the rays are turning up, which are a pain. Take a bad hit. Also, I make the mistake of charging in with my knight at the beginning, as you can see, and now he's surrounded, which is really bad because if you're in combat you can't pop potions. And so, as you can imagine, it does not particularly turn out too well for him. The vampire's moving up. The liches. To be honest, I actually stopped using the skeleton archers by this point in the campaign. I don't see the point of them. Beyond a certain period in time, it's really not worth having them because you have such limited slots. So I start off by basically doing control undead on a bunch of fools. In hindsight, it might have been more useful to have the my main character closer to the main body of the fighting, because he spends a lot of time in this particular fight on the outskirts, not doing a lot besides controlling undead, which is not fantastic. My plan for basically doing this is that I was going to basically distract a lot of the enemy units by having their own forces to fight them, which is something I like to do with the necromancer.
I'm not dead, am
Another
I?
tactic I like to do is I like to basically
Don't run.
I like to throw out. There we go. I like to throw out fireballs because it makes the enemy expand healing potions, which is something I find very useful. If you get them to expend healing potions early on, they're not as much of a threat. Also, another benefit of having the vampires is that if the vampires have double attacks, it means that they can get their health back from fighting the demon. So it's not a bad thing in all respects. I decided this is the problem I had, was that I couldn't get my Black Knight out, which was a shame. I try and bust him out, but it doesn't work because, as you see there, I missed 50%. I had some really bad rolls in this battle, in all honesty, and I couldn't get into safety, which sucked.
No mercy.
Yeah, I wasn't particularly happy with how this went. Because I'm trying to figure out how to... Because I was expecting us to roll over this bottom corner, the bottom left-hand corner, really quickly. It just doesn't happen. Because the skeletons have popped all their potions, and they are absolutely horrible. I decided at this point that I can send them off after someone, because my character can basically regen health, and all of these guys can basically do is hit me for 1 point of damage anyway. So I decided to start hunting down and killing off the skeletons as quickly as possible. And they're all popping healing potions and invulnerability potions, which were the plan all along. And then they decide that they want to take a piece out of my Black Knight, so they all charge him, which is not particularly fantastic. Also, one of the mistakes I did make was that I didn't burn down the Banshees quick enough. The problem is that Banshees are really nasty, really nasty, and one of the mistakes I did was because the positioning of my main character was off, I couldn't fireball them quickly enough to get rid of them. Yeah, so as you can see, the Black Knight is getting absolutely trounced. At this point, I actually start thinking that this may not go particularly well. I start to get a bit nervous because I haven't killed as many people as I was hoping to. The Undead faction I have found is a faction really made purely out of endurance. You really have to endure a lot of damage with the Undead faction. So unlike if I was playing Unlike when I was playing the Paladin, where if you got to a situation like this where you're getting mobbed and you had lots of characters that were starting to run out of health, it was pretty much game over. With the Necromancers, it's not the case. The Necromancers can bounce back, which is something that you'll see in this video. So I decided to basically control Undead him as well. I take control of the Vampire. I find doing so quite useful because it literally robs them of some of their better units. So I basically just send him in, though I didn't realise that the particular vampires only had single attacks, which sucked.
Let us hunt.
Yeah, I didn't have much luck. A lot of my hits missed throughout this battle, which was something that I found very infuriating. Tried to get him to safety, but I couldn't, and then he got pinned in again and killed. I wished I'd actually killed off that that Wraith, because then he could have healed up and have been more useful.
Dead, am I?
I missed with that as well. Oh, I spent so long trying to kill off that skeleton down there. It was unbelievable.
I'm on the way.
I had to admit, one of the things, the group that I found the most frustrating out of all of the people in this battle had to be the skeleton warriors, just the basic skeleton warriors. They were so frustrating. They were toothed up to the gills with every single thing you could give them, plus healing potions, plus invulnerability potions, and they literally just would not die. They just would not die, no matter what you threw at them, they just kept on coming. I destroyed one's eye, which is rather questionable, because it's a skeleton, so they shouldn't have any eyes. And I send off the other skeletons that I'm controlling to basically kill people. To be honest, I was using that plague zombie purely as a distraction. That 10% skeleton with an invulnerability potion on, just absolutely horrific.
You're so dead.
At this point, I'm just trying to clear out as many of the enemy skeletons as I can. I should have probably gone after that skeleton, but I decided not to. I decided to go after that because I have a high chance of hitting him. And we have this one up here, yeah, him. So he's just going to smash up the vampire a bit. This is one of the main things that I find with the Undead faction, is that it's much easier just to use their own people against them. As you can see, they're all healing themselves up. And they keep on trying to kill my people. That particular zombie goes down. I'm not particularly bothered by it. I forget to, in all honesty, I forget to actually bring it back up. Yeah, and they kill off the Black Knight, which is a shame. Ah well, it buffs my character anyway for doing it. At this point I start to get concerned, I start to feel that I'm becoming overwhelmed by units. And it's like, oh, okay, what do I do? He kills off one of his own units, which isn't too bad. As you can see, I'm starting to feel relatively nervous about my chances just because I'm getting overwhelmed. And I still have more banshees to worry about, which are a pain as always. So at this point I start to basically panic slightly, and I start trying to take control of units and distract other units by sending, for example, sending the Wraith after the Banshee, just so that it will pull people back, because I know how the AI works in this game, which is that if you isolate a unit, away from your main body, the AI tends to prioritize it, so it's always useful just to basically send people out on suicide charges. Resurrect the Abomination. Can't do anything that turn. I make the mistake of because I keep making the mistake of pressing on the ground instead of pressing the right button, which is the dismiss option. And so it's like, didn't want to do that.
Bloody humans, you're so dead.
Not again.
Yeah, I just had such problems with the skeletons on this flank. It took me so long to deal with them. So long indeed. By this point I just wanted them dead, that's why I was prioritising killing them off. Can't remember when I think of this one because this one's hurt. Yep. Such bad luck with my rolls. A lot of my rolls just were not hitting. Which isn't so bad, but like in the final battle you really can't afford to have misses.
Let us hunt.
Like that. I mean, I really needed that guy dead.
You're so dead.
And as you can see, I start to then charge people using the skeletons that I've stolen to try and distract them and buy myself some time. And hopefully open up their main force so I can take control of their vampires. Interesting thing, I'd forgotten the revenants. Oh, the wraiths basically have mana burn, which was basically tearing away the banshee's magic. Yeah, they resurrect my Dark Knight. As a horseman, he charges the Lich, which isn't really that bad anymore. They kill off the wraith, not a massive problem. The enemy forces pull back, which gives me a chance to actually do something. I lose the ghoul, but no, I'm not really worrying about that at the moment. At this point, I'm more worried about trying to keep going. I lose 3 units in one turn, which is not particularly fantastic. And at this point, I start to fear that I'm actually going to lose seriously. But I still have a trick up sleeve. I basically control the dead Black Knight. I was still suffering from debuffs from the Banshees, unfortunately, which really sucked. I have my necromancer punt a whole load of his potions, including the mana potion. And I then start resurrecting the dead from all over the place.
What's me?
Just go to town, as it were, just trying to buy myself some time.
Oh, I'm so scared.
And still bogged down by these skeletons. They've been such a pain. That left flank was supposed to have been cleared up ages ago, but they just kept on fighting. And just throwing skeletons all over the place, trying to buy myself time. With hits bouncing off people all over the place. And getting people to pop potions. The problem I had was that I'd forgotten to basically pop potions before the combat engaged, which was basically a bad thing, but it also in some ways turned out to be a good thing, because it allowed me to basically store my stuff and use it later on when I really needed it. I used my recaptured Undead Black Knight to basically take control of the situation, and I start to try and flank around, trying to go after necromancers. I am hesitant to go after them directly because they also have the control undead ability, which they don't have a problem using. Stun him, keep him pinned down. As you can see, the mana burn is working. Vampires are coming back up. They pop up a skeleton right in front of my ranks. I don't know who those were, actually. I think they might have been vampires. Maybe, I don't know. I can't remember who the units were who died there, in all honesty. Just turned into an absolute slugging match. Skeletal catapult turns up.
I
Pull
see
the Banshee
you.
back out of it. So I really needed to keep going. I basically take her potions at this point. Right, she takes the mana potion. That was to basically buff her, because she had quite low magic. She only had like 9 points of magic by this stage in the game.
From the grave.
Control Undead. I take another vampire under control, and I use him to basically attack some of the other other vampires in the group.
Bloody humans.
As you can see, I'm missing a lot of my attacks, which is something that drives me around the bend. I was contemplating doing an ability. This is a mistake I do make. I keep him too far back for too long. I should have pushed with him. Instead, I decide to basically cast a summon demon spell and use him as a distraction, which will probably get me in trouble with the demonic workers union, which is probably fine by me. I don't really care what their opinions of me are.
Finally.
I send the demon running off over there.
Foil.
If nothing else, he'll literally absorb fire because the AI will panic and literally shoot him to bits. So I have no problems with him basically doing that. Kill off the ghoul. Get my... At this point, decide that my skeleton is going to... My Black Knight is going to pop his potions.
Behold.
I'd lost my other developer character at this point. He got killed off and come back as the skeleton knight, well, the skeleton horseman. So yeah, by this point there's no one really left alive. It's a shame. Have him pop his potions. Just sort of they carry out the fighting still. And just slogging away on these skeletons who are just taking an age to kill. An absolute age. I decided to try and
You're so dead. Let
I
us
decided to try and
hunt.
finish off the Banshee because I'm just getting tired of the constant debuffs. Just smack into him, like gouge out one of their eyes.
You're so dead.
Just hack him to bits.
Let us
I was
hunt.
really the thing was I wanted to go after the Banshee, but I couldn't afford to go after the Banshee because obviously I didn't want to get within range of their stupid Control Undead spell. So I just pop a whole load of potions and wait and hopefully buy myself some time. Because even though he had very little mana, I was actually worried that he was going to still have enough mana to pop me, because I think he had, it's like 3 or 4 pips of magic power that you need to do Control Undead. And I really do was not wanting to fight him. Of course, here I get blocked. And they start killing off their own people again. One of the liches casts Toxic Cloud and poisons my forces, which is never a particularly pleasant thing. Skeleton gets done in again. Abomination gets wiped out. Screaming Catapult hits. The Undead King starts moving up. and I have to resurrect the abomination to basically keep my forces in the line, and I'm starting to worry about the Undead King taking control of my units. So I decide to cast a spell magic on him to basically get rid of his magic pool.
I'm not dead, am I?
Once his magic pool is depleted, I charge the demon up north to try and distract him, or at least try and take out one of the liches, so that the other lich will waste time trying to resurrect it. I'm still hesitant to send my vampires in, so I decide to reinforce that flank, and we try and basically beat up the remaining skeletons, who have been, up until this point, absolutely slowing me down all game. Most of my forces have been tied up on this left flank just trying to deal with these skeletons. He can't do anything. I was literally just trying to figure out who I had left to go.
You're so
Finally deal with the last Banshee,
better
which
run.
was muchly preferred by I, because I just did not like them at this point. They were causing me no end of problems. I'm deciding who to basically smack with my abomination. I decided to clear out the skeleton because he can't be brought back, and I'm close enough that I have a character that can use control undead to oppose the Undead King's control of units. My plan was basically to continually cast a spell on him so he didn't have any mana left to do abilities with, because the Undead King's abilities are really nasty. Skeleton heals up. Vampire blocks the demon, which I was unhappy with because I wanted to use the demon to basically attack. Yeah, it's at this point I'm basically hoping that the Undead King does what he was doing, which was basically isolate himself and allow him to kill him. The demon gets killed off by the liches because obviously they do double damage to the health if the drain life spell is used while they're fully healed. Heal up the necromancer using that. No, I can't get anyone with that spell, which is a shame. I am at this point. I am forgetting that I have the disintegration spell. I could have used it. I keep on forgetting, which is really frustrating because I keep thinking I can't use it because it's greyed out. It needs to have a bright colour. It needs to have a very bright colour so that you can tell it's actually usable. Because I keep thinking it's not usable. I decided to use Firebolt here to try and basically weaken them. It doesn't do that much damage, though it does wound the lich, which is very useful. And I start to try and smash up the undead king, and try and kill him as quickly as possible. I get a couple of good. At this point, my luck seems to turn, and I get some very good rolls off. I pop all my healing stuff on the abomination, and literally Sergei basically goes in swinging, gets a very nice hit off, and gouges out one of the Undead King's possibly existing eyeballs. At this point, I just decide I've had enough. I'm just literally going to try and tie up the necromancers.
Better run.
Demon is causing problems. We have Noe. Her lightning bolt in this battle comes really useful. I found it to be massively helpful. I normally don't use it because it's only really useful against weak enemies, but with this it was very, very, very useful. Well, it's useful against enemies if they're wearing metal, but that's mostly just a human faction. Vampires are running around not doing a lot, as usual.
Let us hunt.
That one only had one attack, which was so frustrating. I really wanted to kill the guy off. And of course the repurposed skeleton warriors are still chopping away at the enemy. I decide to send the vampire up there just to bolster the ranks in case when the demon goes down.
No.
Skeletons just start piling on the healing potions at this point. Everyone keeps on doing it. The necromancer, well, the lich does control undead on the vampire. See the units relocating. That blasted skeleton didn't even have a problem all game. I could have just used disintegration on him at this point. I just did not consider it because obviously I thought I couldn't use it. So I decided to use chain lightning.
Don't
Him,
run.
which is very nice. Smack him and get him. I mess with that, so I try and kill him off, and I kill him with a skeleton warrior, which I thought was very fitting. To get killed by one of your own units. I do like the irony in that. I retake control of the vampire. Send him up there to smack into the lich.
Bloody humans.
And we just start butchering their remaining forces.
Humans.
I don't know why I didn't try and take out the lich just then. I just don't know. Bring back the vampire that I'd lost earlier. I probably was just thinking that I just could take him out or something else. I don't know. By this point in the battle, I'm just surprised I'm actually winning, because for most of the battle I thought I was going to lose, and it was only due to the Undead faction's endurance to damage. They have very high damage endurance, and they can keep going for a long period of time. It was only due to that I felt like I kept on going. Everybody regens, necromancer takes a hit of health. Yeah, see, control undead again. I was surprised they put up a really good fight, especially the skeletons. The skeletons put up a much harder fight than I anticipated. Kisses. I just take a risk and try and wipe them out in one turn, forgetting that this particular vampire only has one attack. Accidentally moved the skeleton. I didn't want to do that, but it gives me the opportunity to pump up his health. I send in, I believe that's the same skeleton warrior that actually killed off the Undead King. He kills off that lich as well, so he's a relatively potent skeleton warrior. And we just keep missing attacks, which sucks. Heal him up. Just keep on healing him up. It's going relatively well, I think. By this point, I'm pretty confident I can't lose, which is considering something, since I was thinking I was going to lose for most of this battle. Send the Banshee up.
I'm not dead, am I?
I got a lot of work out of her lightning spell, especially towards the end of the battle. See, look, that one skeleton warrior has wiped out all of the undead casters in this battle. He killed the Undead King, he killed both the liches. He is an unstoppable killing machine. And with that particular death, I am pretty much guaranteed to win. So I decide to capture that skeleton warrior down there that's been peeving me off no end. I also... what else do I do? I'm trying to remember. These guys basically wander around for a bit, and I just start picking off the remaining. It's not a particularly hard fight at this point. I'm rather happy with how it went. Yeah, so this has basically been like the final fight in the Necromancer campaign for Age of Fear, the Undead King. I have enjoyed it a lot. I personally found it a lot more rewarding than the Paladin. The Paladin Let's Play was, well, the Paladin campaign was a bit simple for my liking, but I found the Necromancer one to be very, very enjoyable indeed. And I just started just doing mass undead control because I just can't be bothered to fight people. I would recommend this game. I will say, as always, that I received this game free from the developers, which I'm very grateful for. But personally, I like the game a lot. Obviously, statements of slight biasness aside, I do like this game. Video recording glitches aside, it's a good tactical game. I like tactics games. I like games like Fire Emblem, and this is one of those. It's a very rewarding game, and I would recommend it to people. If you're expecting fantastic graphics and stuff, don't get it. It's this game has a similar aesthetic to, say, the D20 online D&D system. With its look, like top-down look, but it's a very nice game. All the sprites, all like the character models are rendered very nicely. The story is, though not complicated, it is very like traditional D&D story-wise. It's, for someone who loves D&D like I do, this is a really good game. And for someone who likes tactics, or at least turn-based strategy, this is a very, very good game. It does have issues, I'm not going to lie. From a technical standpoint, as you can see, now I remember the disintegration spell. Like, for that, for example, the disintegration spell needs to have a brighter icon so you actually think you can use it. Other technical issues that I have, I don't like the fact that the game engine refuses to work with any recording software besides OBS. And even with OBS you get the stuttering. I don't know why it's doing that. I have tried, both myself and the developer have tried everything to stop it from doing that. But unfortunately that wasn't the case. So all we can sort of do is sort of hope. All I can do is hope that Age of Fear 2 is a bit more recording friendly. I haven't attempted to record it yet. I do the usual thing, which is sort of loot stuff, so I like doing it. I do like the fact that they added rats, like they added like a random enemy in that you could meet, because it keeps you on your toes, especially if all your units are low on health.
What's me?
But I finally get a use out of the Drain Life ability for Necromancer. I do like this game, I really do. And then we go to the dialogue. Do we do it? Still rummaging through stuff. I think as it stands now, the game's a lot better. I've heard from people that basically said that when they played it, they didn't have like you didn't have voiceovers for like the in-game script. You didn't have this and that and bits and pieces. As it stands now, I think the game is well worth the investment in money that they're asking for. Like, I'm trying to remember what the trilogy, if you buy the trilogy, it's what, £20? If you go onto Steam it will tell you. Personally, I think that's a really good amount of money for free games which have a lot of content. I mean, I would happily play this again. It's just a nice tactical game, and tactical games are very enjoyable to replay because you can try different strategies. And we go to the end credits. Well, I said the end credits, but the end dialogue.
With the Undead King destroyed, Krill found it easy to bend the remaining undead to his will. Power, Krill murmured to himself, feeling flushed with the victory over the Undead King. Banishing all of the demons back to hell, back to their dark creator, made Krill feel invincible. The thought that a human would have been able to transform into an undead with the power needed to banish demons must have truly shocked them, judging by the looks on their stricken countenances as they were sucked back to the underworld. With the power of the Undead King's former army at his disposal, Krill's destiny had been fulfilled. He had triumphed over demons, greenskins, and knights alike. No one could stop him now. The humans were too feeble and lacked a leader to take him on successfully. If somehow they could manage to find and rally behind a strong and virtuous leader, then perhaps they could defeat him. But he was not too worried about that happening anytime soon in these ravaged lands. Between the havoc wreaked by the Undead King and Krill, there were few resources and troops left. With the demons gone, he had only to focus on the humans, and the king did not have an army strong enough to destroy him now. It would take a hero, a very mighty hero indeed, to pose any threat to Krill. And he knew that in all of the human kingdom, no such hero existed. At least, that is what he thought. But that is a story for another time. In the following years, any human who dared come near Silverhall never made it back alive. If they could only have warned the others who came after them, they could have saved countless lives. Eventually, people stopped coming anywhere near Silverhall. The rumors and accounts of the evil power in the area scared them all away. Krill toyed with every living being that entered the icy lands, be it human, orc, goblin, or animal. He did not need any more minions, but he ritually sacrificed any and all that entered his domain nonetheless. Occasionally, Krill would send out his undead to pillage unlucky villages. The vampires would first feed on the unsuspecting victims, and the other undead would finish off the survivors and drag some of the corpses back to Silverhall as toys for Krill. With Krill's triumph, the depths of Silverhall served as a monument to the nemesis of humankind for years to come.
And there we go, folks. This has been Age of Fear, the Undead King. And there are the credits and the designers. I hope you enjoyed this Let's Play and this post-commentary. I've been Cornish-Knight. If you've liked, please press the like button. If you wish to subscribe, please press the subscribe button. You can follow me on Twitter, on Steam. Leave a comment in the comment section, and I'll get back in contact. And we'll see you all for the next chapter of the Age of Fear. I believe, I don't know, I think it'll probably either start probably next Monday. So I want to have some other stuff to show off first. So that's it for now, and I shall see you all next time. Goodbye.